Dante, God bless you, brother. Dante, a chat champion. What did I just put a star on it? Oh, I put a star on it. What does that mean? I put a star on it. Dante says, love the content. I'm a homebrewer with aspirations. Biggest issue I have is my ABV is always low. OG comes within a point of the recipe, but the final is always about half of expected. Thoughts. Let me reread this, Dante. And thank you very much for the super chat tip, man. Love the content. I'm a homebrewer with aspirations. Biggest issue is my ABV is always low. Okay, so what you're saying is so your original gravity is always within a half a point of the recipe, but you're probably getting a higher finishing gravity. Okay, that's the physics on that, right? It's probably not physics, but you have 1040 going in. So it says, so if a recipe says ABV should be about 5, it comes in at about 2.5 or so. Okay, so that's a really big difference. So one thing I would say is making sure that your equipment that you're measuring with is correct and calibrated. If you're using a hydrometer, most hydrometers are calibrated with like 60-degree Fahrenheit water, and I believe like deionized water or whatever. You want to make sure that that's all floating appropriately and that that all that stuff is calibrated. But if what you're telling me is the case, if you're expecting to get a 5% beer, but you're only getting 2.5, it sounds like you're only fermenting half of what is in there. So is that beer like unbelievably sweet and borderline impossible to drink? Like still tastes like bitter wort basically at that point? I thought you were just saying you were coming in at like a half point low. So you're like, instead of a 5% beer, you're at 4.5. I was also thinking if you're, coming in, 1 or 0.5% or 1% low on ABV, you could be looking at like a yeast health issue, right? To where you're not having enough or healthy enough or appropriately oxygenated yeast going into that beer. That's another possibility as well. So like for that 5% beer, not sweet, but very yeasty. So I would need to be able to see those numbers, brother. So if you, that 5% beer, I'm guessing the original gravity, if we're talking original gravity, is between 1050 and 1055. And then the finishing gravity, you're probably expecting it to go down to 1012 to 1013, down 1014 to give you your 5%. But if you're at 2.5, you're only going down to 1020. Are you taking a post ferment gravity? And if so, what are you measuring it with? Like the floating hydrometer, a refractometer, or something fancier? All right, we're back to Dante. Dante said, yes, it started at 1055 and ended at 1030 with a refractometer before forced carbonation and a carboy that gets sanitized beforehand. Yeah, man. Yeah, and September and June has a good point here. Refracts are not worth anything past hot side because they don't read once alcohol is created. And calibrate the hydrometer, as he mentioned. Absolutely, he's spot on there. So yeah, man, you're getting 50% attenuation out of this beer. And so really what I would be looking at is pitching rate. What volume of beer are you making? It sounds like maybe you're like on the 5-ish gallon side. I would be looking at if you can only get dry yeast, probably an 11-gram pack will do. Maybe it would need more if you're not getting it there. Also, if I don't know if you're writing your own recipes or not, but I I would dial up a blonde ale. Dial up a base malt beer, like a lawnmower beer, make it 4.5%, 15, 20 IBU or whatever, real lean, real clean. And the reason I'm saying is it's possible that your recipe build is heavy on non-fermentable sugars as well. Yeah, that would be a possibility as well. So make sure that get a beer through there that's really primarily base malt. So it should attenuate to 80%, whatever. Get some American ale dry yeast in there, and see what it does, right? But yeah, my two hunches, it's on one of two sides. There's either, this is probably the primary one, it's a yeast health viability situation, or pitching rate situation, or potentially you have too high of a percentage of non-fermentable grains in there. Recipe is one found online mixed with what a local shop had on hand when I went to buy ingredients. Look at that recipe. Do you know how much of it was like in the Cara Munich caramel range? Or anything caramel, Cara, anything like that? I'd be interested to know the percentage. Because if you're up around 20%, 25% malts that aren't going to ferment out, like Cara crystal malts, that can really push your finishing gravity up. That could be a culprit as well. Yes, if it is the 100% Cara Pils beer, it might be difficult. The Oktoberfest had 7% Cara Pils. Okay, so is there any other color malts in there? So I would not be counting your Munich, your Pils, your Vienna, or anything like that. Just the other things. Roasted barley and melanoid. Do you remember what the rest of that percentage was per the grist? See, you're looking at something that maybe had 10 to 15%, and it still shouldn't ferment like that, man. My guess is, and even think about like yeast starter. Yeah, I would dig in on some stuff like that, man. I think that's what you're looking at, is you're actually looking at a situation where your yeast pooped out before they were really ready to roll. Yeah. Okay. So you're up to 17% melanoid and malt, roasted barley. Yeah. And maybe you had maybe you hit the really high end of your mash temp as well, as Andrew in the chat. Andrew, welcome. As Andrew mentioned, that can be a factor as well. Yeah, but brother, that's really high. So I would look at, trying to get your mash temperature down into the low 150s. Let's put together a beer that has no more than 5% non-fermentable malt in it, something very pale. 5% beer, 20 IBU. Like we said, lawnmower beer. It's probably, well, maybe it's summer where you are. Might be time for it. And get a good robust pitch of yeast in there, right? I think that's more than likely your situation. That's more than likely your situation. And also, I think it would be worth calibrating the temperature probe in that grainfather too. So get some liquid in there and get it reading a temperature, and take and calibrate it with temperature probe that you know is reliable. Just trying to track down all the things. But Dante, I hope that helps you out. I've noticed my system does not mash on the high side of the temp. I'm going for the next batch. Yeah, dude. Yeah, you're in North. I think you're saying North Carolina. Yeah, dude. Get something light through there, man. Yeah, and Eric mentions too. Maybe give it enough time to getting that. Maybe you didn't have enough time for conversion there too. Yeah, and OBP mentions you can't use a refrac for final gravity. Let's jump back to or did I get him already? Okay. When OBP was talking about earlier, when we were talking about his purge and trying to drop dissolved oxygen levels, he said he typically fills the tank to 1 bar or about 15 psi through the stone, leave the tank for 10 minutes, then purge out through the spray ball all until almost empty and transfer. I think that you might want to look at amending that process, OBP. There's a great podcast that was done by Master Brewers Association talking about purging bright tanks. And I feel like you might want to go for a lower and slower purge through the bottom of that tank. What size vessels are they? I can't. Oh, you said 500 liters. Crap. I wonder what that is in barrels. If anybody wants to tell me what 500 liters is in barrels, but he was saying the NBA podcast was saying put 5 psi through the bottom of the tank for a half hour for every 5 barrels of tank size, and that should get you in a safe area. That worked for me for a long time. I would suggest doing that. So you would bleed through the bottom, leaving the CIP spray ball arm open. And you're probably looking at, for a 15 barrel tank, I would purge for an hour and a half with a flow rate of 5 psi coming through my CO2. That's what I would do, because I don't think you're getting an appropriate purge. I can say pretty confidently I don't believe you're getting an appropriate purge through there, man, with that. So I think it might extend some shelf life for you. But if you dig in on that and make some changes, let me know if you feel as if it helps. I'm interested. I am interested. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you feel as if you got any value out of the video, please like and subscribe. There are also other videos that you can watch. They're going to maybe be over here or over here. Appreciate you watching.